Hi, I'm Peter Sermon, the linebacker coach and recruiting coordinator here at the University of Washington. I hope you can gain some valuable insight in doing some linebacker drills that help your kids play better football. Go Dogs. So now let's get started checking out some of the linebacker drill tapes that the drills that we do here at the University of Washington. First thing that we focus on every year is going to be tackling. Okay, we have an assortment of different tackling drills that we do. The first one that I introduce is called Pride Tackle. It's a relatively short area drilling about 3 yards apart from one another. You have the heels of the linebacker on the line. The drill is started when the offensive player picks up the football, and again, it's a short area, running through contact, trying to get the screws to the midline, accelerate through contact, and then clamp and run and finish. So it's a good way to introduce those three things: screws to the midline, accelerate, clamp, and finish in a relatively safe manner, and get the new guys understanding what we're asking of them, and then again, just working on the fundamentals every day. So this is a drill that we work usually 2 to 3 times a week and almost every day in spring and in training camp. We'll go against the offensive or the running backs, and really what's called pride tackle, because if the offensive player gets across the line, then the offensive player wins, the defensive player keeps them from it, then the defensive player wins, thus the name pride tackle. So we're trying to keep our hips behind us, do a good job of using our hips, controlling the tackle, and then clamping, and then really running our feet, emphasizing keeping our cleats in the ground and accelerating through contact. You see different guys have a little different tempo in how they do it, but you can get this drill going just really almost as violently as you want to, or as teach tempo as you want. Another good example of it here you see from the side. You can get a better feel for how the drill's set up, and you can watch these guys clamp and accelerate. We incorporate the strip part of it. We put the ball in the incorrect hand of the running back, and it's still the pride tackle drill, but now we're just stripping that ball out as well, trying to attack that front hand and go ahead and rip it out, understanding that if we can control the tackle and there's an opportunity to get the ball out, we're going to take every opportunity to try to attack that ball and create a turnover. Again, drills set up the same way, so there's very easy carryover from, hey, we're going to do pride tackle, now we're going to incorporate pride tackle with the strip element. The next one we work on quite often is called pulp tackle. Now we're working on a little more space. So we're going to be on the top of the numbers, and then the defender's on the sidelines. And the offensive player has really that 5-yard window to work through. He can make a move going right and left, try to make it shake a little bit. And what we're emphasizing here is decreasing space on defense. And again, trying to get to that same pride tackle finish, screws to the midline, accelerate through contact, clamp and run. And again, just talking, emphasizing decreasing space. Space is our enemy on defense. We're always trying to get closer to the ball carrier to eliminate yards and also eliminate the amount of space that we have to defend. One-man sled tackle is another good way to introduce tackling, talking about screws to the midline. You can see it's a good shot right there. Accelerating through contact and clamping and running and keeping our hips directly behind our tackle, so it's not a glancing blow but a knockback tackle. So we try to get flush up on this one-man sled. We have a 45-pound weight on it, like you can see, so it's a little more realistic. I don't like tackling bags or dummies that don't have weight or size. So most everything we do, we're going to tackle another human being or a heavy sled, or if we don't have our shoulder pads on, we'll put a one-man shield, a one-man bag, and have somebody hold it and make the defender wrap all the way around it to really get that feeling of tackling a guy with shoulder pads on. So again, just trying to stay square to it, accelerate, clamp and run, keeping our face up, using good tackling mechanics and good tackling fundamentals. All right, then from there, after we've talked through pride tackle and our one-man sled tackle, now we're going to take this thing to the ground. So we're going to offset slightly to the left, and we're going to tackle this to the right. So again, this is going to look very, very similar to what we did in pulp and pride. So we're still continuing to emphasize the same finish, screws to the midline, accelerate through contact, clamp and run. And now this is really the emphasis on the acceleration and keeping your feet in the ground and continue to move forward so guys don't get into bad habits of leaving their feet and dropping their knees to the ground. So again, this is a heavy bag, so it feels a little more realistic than hitting an agile bag, for instance. And you can see when guys keep their hips behind it and drive it into the ground, it's a lot more effective tackle. That's a good tackle right there where number 7 drove the bag into the ground, keeping his feet and his cleats in the ground. Another one, a banana tackle. I use the word banana to try to paint a picture of what we're trying to communicate here. So this is a lot of people call this a sideline or an angle tackle drill. We call it a banana because that's really the path we want you to take. We're trying to go to his inside hip. The offensive player's path is going to determine your path on defense. Inside hip, and again, the same element of what we talked about in pulp of decrease in space. Space is the enemy. Offense wants to play in a soccer field. Defense, we want to play in a phone booth. So we're always talking about getting closer to the ball carrier. So we're letting essentially the offensive player win the race. We start with no leverage on the ball carrier, and we have to create our own leverage by working to his inside hip. The wider the angle he goes, the more that's going to determine our path. If he comes downhill at me, then I'll just continue to come downhill at him and his inside hip. If I have good enough leverage, I shouldn't have to break stride if he tries to cut back. So this incorporates a little bit of change of direction, but still working on the same fundamentals, decrease in space, working to his inside hip. The one you have to really coach is really just the defender understanding that his path is dictated upon the path or the angle of the offensive player, working as a sideline as our 12th defender. Like I said, if you have a good enough leverage, a good enough angle, when he does cut back, you should just be able to accelerate right through it because you've already captured such a good angle. If he continues to run to the sideline, then it's going to be a side profile tackle. The second fundamental that we work all the time is going to be getting off blocks. The first one is tackling, the second one is getting off blocks, and these are the drills that we worked for that. 5-man sled, good introduction of putting our hands and really working a 6-point explosion, keeping our elbows in, our thumbs up, and our face mask up, and continue to strike with that triple explosion or getting your hips through contact. So I worked this with a simple whistle, and they just stay on my command. It's really the only thing that I work that they listen to an audio command. Everything else is through some kind of visual stimulus. When they see something, their body reacts. Working down the line of incorporating some footwork with hand placement and being in good body position to taking on a block and be able to get off and then go make a play. So we talk a lot about defeating blocks, but you have to be in good body position to be able to take it on and then ultimately get off and tackle the guy with the ball. Shock and shed. So again, we're going to hit back to the 1-man sled. Again, introductory, getting about 1 step away from that. And they're going to start the drill on themselves, and then you see myself on the right part of the screen here of giving them a direction. So there's a couple different ways to do it. Sometimes we can give them, hey, you're going to go to the right or to the left. We're playing some 3-4 mechanics. So a lot of these guys have to 2-gap, so we're working on the visual cue of not giving them a predetermined direction on where to escape, but making them see with their eyes and then make a decision. Right there was a perfect example. He saw something and went the wrong way. So we lift, we run, and what we really try to do here is always work the visual part of it of them reacting to what they see with their bodies and not just making them robots or making them guys that do great drill work that doesn't apply to game situations. So now here's the shock and shed with giving them a little more of a run-up, a little more realistic approach of taking on a block, but again, the same visual cue of myself pointing to make sure that they understand the most important thing is getting off that block and then be able to track the ball carrier, not getting so buried in these blockers that you can't get off and make a play. So the fundamentals here, we're trying to get the screws in the chin of the offensive player. And then we're shocking and striking with our hands, then it's a shock and shed. I don't really teach a swim or a rip. It's a shock, and then I'm trying to throw them down and escape so I don't get my arm caught in if I try to rip through it. Again, just a few more clips of coming up to it, and you can see how everyone has to peek for a little bit of leverage so they can see where the ball carrier is. You know, in 4-3 spacing, sometimes you know where your leverage is going to be, you know where you can escape. That's the easy part. The hard part is having to see and then make a decision and being able to be strong and violent, getting off on both sides of the block and not knowing pre-snap where you're going to escape. Now some general movement drills. So what we're going to work on every day here is tackling, getting off blocks, and then movement drills. So some pretty basic from the hash mark to the sidelines, just some back pedal and some back pedal weave, trying to keep our shoulders nice and calm and working on a little bit of hip flexibility and just some general movement. Some 45-degree shuffle, keeping our eyes back, playing a good football shuffle. My feet aren't friends. Trying not to click the heels, but always having one foot in the ground, which is essential for any good change of direction if you're playing linebacker, if you're in the front line of kickoff return and you're blocking guys. Really emphasizing having one foot in the ground at all times, so there's always contact with the ground so you can feel good about your change of direction. Emphasizing bending our knees and bending our hips, and not for speed here, but being in great body position and having my eyes back at all time. See the quarterback and see the ball. Again, some more just general hip flexibility, pedaling on a line, turning it open, and then bringing my hips all the way back around, emphasizing staying on the line and accelerating. Once I see that ball thrown, working on a visual cue of reading the quarterback's shoulder is what we're trying to emphasize here by just turning the ball over right and left. And at the top of this drill, tell these guys it's like you're on a bungee cord. As soon as you put your foot in the ground, you need to re-accelerate back down to the ball. Again, incorporating just some shuffle, back pedal, and again, a visual stimulus, telling them where to go. I'll break them inside or outside. The same emphasis of being bent knees, good body position, having a good shuffle, keeping a good base so there's one foot's always in the ground. Don't be clicking your heels, and then accelerate once you get that visual cue of the quarterback, his shoulders, which direction they're going to go. Like again, you have a bungee cord on you, pulling yourself out of that break, coming on back downhill. All right, well, that was the linebacker drill tape here at the University of Washington. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully that you learned something or that you can apply into your daily linebacker position room that helps you coach your guys up to be the best players they're capable of being. Go Dogs.